Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Um, all right. I saw someone suggesting that we turn off the slow mode. I did that. I saw the comment, so I turned it off. Let's just see how it works because I uh, I turn on the slow mode just to prevent people with ulterior motives, trying to shut down our normal communication in the chat. Um, Okay, so let's see how it goes. All right, I hope everyone had a great start of Sunday. Mine is good. Once in a month, I do the live stream, the weekend live stream on a Sunday morning instead of Saturday night. It certainly feels great to do it in the morning. I'm more energetic. Okay, so we are going to talk about who are the dangerous individuals ambushed around Xi Jinping or his enemies, right? Um, so after obtaining a third term, he actually had, after consolidating power, getting rid of his political enemies, removing Hu Jintao from the podium, he should be, feeling more secure, but that's not the case. He has been feeling increasingly insecure. He has turned this insecurity into a political purging within his inner circle. So we've seen the missing foreign minister, right, Qinggang. We've seen the missing past and present defense ministers. And we know there's some internal cleansing happening in the rocket force. So high-ranking CCP officials have fallen out of favor with him at a pace that faster than what we can comprehend. And now the position of his number two guy, the Premier Li Qiang, seems to be um, questionable, or he's in a shaky position. And the reason is China's leader Xi Jinping is suspicious. He is suspicious of the two-faced people in his inner circle. So who are the people with treasonous agendas ambushed around him, both explicitly and implicitly? And could these people pose any threat to him? So today we'll separate this discussion into two segments. The first, we'll talk about Xi Jinping's odd travel itineraries. Um, he seems to be staying away from Beijing. And then we'll talk about the two types of people who pose a threat to him. Okay, so why do I say he is very suspicious of people near him? Well, over the past couple of months, Xi Jinping seemed to be in favor of traveling instead of staying in Beijing. So in September, he left Beijing twice. From September 6th to 8th, he visited Heilongjiang up in the northeast. And from September 21st to 23rd, he visited Zhejiang province up in the south. But what's odd is 20 days later, he visited Jiangxi province right next to Zhejiang, and that's from October 10th to the 13th. So in less than 20 days, let me show you a map. He visited two cities that are only 200 kilometers apart. Here we go. So, so on the left is Jiangxi province, on the right is Zhejiang province, and the two blue lines at the top is the train, the direction to Beijing, and then the red triangles is where he moved about in the local provinces. So you see Shangrao in Jiangxi province, the box I circled on the left or in the center is in Jiangxi province, and then Jinhua in Zhejiang province, the box on the right, they're only 130 miles apart. So the question is, these two cities they're not large cities that, like Shanghai, Beijing, that may take up a lot of time for him to do meet and greet there. But they are, relatively smaller cities. So the question is, why does he travel, from Beijing all the way south to Zhejiang, then go back to Beijing, then south again to Jiangxi? Um, why didn't he visit the two cities in one travel, in one trip? So it seems that he doesn't mind traveling a lot. Now, during the busy 8-day October National Day from the 1st to the 8th, many Chinese were traveling. It's one of the busiest traveling season in China because of the extended holidays. Xi Jinping stayed in Beijing and didn't go anywhere. But people say that he went to, when he stayed in Beijing, it doesn't mean that he stayed in Zhongnanhai. He probably went to seek refuge in his underground command center in Xishan. What do you call that? The Western Mountains, in the mountainous area, in the mountains outside Beijing. And then on October 9th, he attended a trade union conference and then met with the visiting U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. And then the next day, October 10th, he was seen in Jiujiang, Jiangxi province, which is the map on here on the far left corner. So, um, so it means that, so people say that he must have left the evening of October the 10th for him to arrive in Zhejiang he must have left Beijing the evening of the 9th after meeting with Chuck Schumer for him to arrive in Jiangxi the next day, right? So it seems that he did not even want to stay in Beijing for a night. So he left as soon as he could to go down the south after meeting with Chuck Schumer, right? So that seems to be very interesting. Well, what was I going to say? And then while on the road, he brought with him an entourage of officials. So let me show you the picture of people who he brought with him. Let's see. Here we go. Here we go. He brought three officials with him. Cai Qi, his housekeeper or butler, CCP's main chief butler, the guy who's running the CCP household for Xi Jinping. And then the number two, the de facto number two guy within the party, the guy in the center. And then Li Ganjie, the head of CCP's human resources. He's in charge of the organization, 宗主部, the central organizational department. I mean, really the head of the human resources. And He Lifeng, the vice premier in charge of the economy. So he brought these three men with him when he traveled to the south. And then 2 days later, on October 12th, two Politburo Standing Committee members, Li Qiang and Ding Xuexiang, and the guy who's the head of the Development and Reform Commission, that's an important organization in charge of economy, all three were summoned by Xi Jinping to go to Jiangxi where he was. This again shows that Xi Jinping has been calling the shots while on the road. And he's just he brought with him some of the important officials with him, and he also is calling on his Politburo Standing Committee members to go wherever he was. So in the past 3 months, he has been away from Beijing on average twice every month, and so it looks like he's trying to get away from Zhongnanhai as much as he can. Zhongnanhai is where the top leaders live and work. It's basically a small garden. It's a territory. It's a garden palace outside of the Forbidden City where several Qin dynasty emperors had resided. So this seems to confirm the rumor that a Tang dynasty prophecy has a big psychological impact on Xi Jinping. The book called Pushback Diagram, 推背图, predicted a warrior entering the palace through the back door with a golden sword. Sword. Somebody was correcting my pronunciation on the word sword. Sword, not sword. I remember all the notes you guys sent me on who are trying to help me with pronouncing certain English words. Now I remember that sword. Okay, all right. I really enjoy these sessions. I think this is great. I'm learning English. You guys are helping me with my English. Okay, I wish I could learn more from you, but the thing is, I don't hear from you guys. You guys hear me, but it's one way. It's a one-way communication during the live stream. Anyways, let's focus on the program. Yeah, so the prophecy predicted, I'm just reading the translation from the prophecy book, a warrior entering the palace through the back door with a golden sword. So maybe Xi Jinping feels unsafe being in Zhongnanhai, and he feels safer being on the road in his train. By the way, he travels in a train, his special train, and is avoiding the palace residence due to this fear. Okay, so that's just my observation on his odd itinerary. I mean, being the head of the leader, I mean, I imagine that they're so busy that they want to be, close to where the center of the power is, where his officials are, right? I mean, he should be in Beijing, but in this case, well, he doesn't mind traveling and bringing everyone with him. So now let's talk about who are Xi Jinping's enemies, who can stage such an act that makes him feel so worried. Okay, so Xi Jinping, now let's talk about the two forces of oppositions within the CCP. The first are the influential party elders who don't see eye to eye with him. These people no longer hold any official positions, but are still influential. The most threatening party elder is no other than Zheng Qinghong. Do I have a picture of him? I think I do. Here we go. And he has been the reason why he is still the most formidable force in China is that he has been the de facto leader of the Jiang Zemin faction, and Xi Jinping has been fighting with the Jiang Zemin faction for over 10 years, ever since he came to power. And so that's reason number one, why Zheng still is a formidable force. Secondly, Zheng is a leader among the princelings. Right? He himself is a princeling, and he is a leader among the princelings. His mother used to be the headmaster of a CCP nursery school. I should say a nursery school serving the CCP leaders. So many princelings feel connected to the Zheng family because this guy's mother used to take care of them when they were young, when they were much younger. And thirdly, he was once in charge of Hong Kong and Macau affairs and has control of the CCP's overseas intelligence apparatus. Perhaps the most harm this man can do to Xi Jinping is his connections in the West, particularly his connection with Western media outlets. Haven't we seen the three recent articles by Nikkei Asia about Zheng Qinghong's confrontation with Xi Jinping during the summer at Beidaihe, right? Many people say those three articles are just propaganda, are media work by his opposition, and they don't necessarily mean that the events described in the articles happened, or they didn't happen the way it was described. It just shows Zheng Qinghong is still willing and very capable of causing heartburns for Xi Jinping. However, with that said, it's still not easy for him to stage a coup d'etat against Xi Jinping because he need he needs, or they collectively, meaning the party elders behind this man, they need an agent to help them execute the plan. In order for them to take down Xi Jinping, they must have someone holding a key position in Xi Jinping's inner circle. Not only that person has to be in the inner circle, that person has to be willing to do the work for them or with them. So how do what does this aging mean? Well, the best example to illustrate this is the story of how Madame Mao was overthrown. So after Mao Zedong died, Madame Mao and her gang of four were calling the shots, which annoyed the party elders who, didn't respect Madame Mao in the first place and didn't really think that they should be following her order. So they decided to overthrow her. Um, but they couldn't do it alone. So they reached out to the man who was Mao's chief security, Wang Dongxing. And the man was also a Politburo member. So he not only he held the important position of being the head of the Central Security Bureau, but he was also a Politburo member and was playing the role of a secretary to Mao. But Mao died already. But that just shows you how important this man was. After some negotiation with the party elders, Wang decided to help them. So he deployed the A341 Corps, 834Corps, which is the military unit responsible for Mao's security. So with his help, with this man's help, they arrested Madame Mao and her three cronies. So Wang Dongxing was the agent for the party elders like Deng Xiaoping and Chen Yun, right? These party elders orchestrated the coup, but then they needed an agent like Wang, who has active duty, who is close to the target, the target that they want to take down. So currently, the CCP party elders don't have any of their agents still remaining in Xi's inner circle because over the past 10 years, they've been purged by Xi Jinping. They may have some people at lower levels, but the lower level people are powerless. So if these elders want to do something, they must find an agent, and a willing one, a willing, able one. So what's scary to Xi Jinping is, although he has purged, Zheng Qinghong and then the Jiang faction and, Hu Jintao faction, all of these people's agents near him, there are still many other people willing to play the role by colluding with the party elders. Now, if you look at what Xi Jinping has done in the past 10 years, he has offended a lot of CCP leaders, right? So he has offended in fact, all political factions, including the reformists, the Zhang faction, the reformists, the princelings. So he has offended all the political factions, and from the private sectors to the state-owned enterprises, and to the military and to the bureaucrats at all levels. He and his policies have offended almost everyone that he can. So it's very difficult for these individuals who are not happy with what they're seeing to make a change, because in the CCP's political process, there isn't a venue or a channel for them to bring down a leader. So the only way is to resort to some extreme means. And this is Xi Jinping's biggest concern. And then although the party elders like Zheng Qinghong is influential and their influence may be still formidable, but it's not as scary because Xi Jinping has been fighting with them for the past 10 plus years. He knows who they are. He knows what they do. Um, because this group is an overt operation. But the group of people who are opposing him within the system, who are still serving under him, and those people belong to the covert operation, right? They are more dangerous because Xi Jinping doesn't know who they are. They are They are the two-faced people um, that hold key positions in his government, and this is more dangerous. So now what he has done is he's trying everything he can to prevent the two-faced people. He's trying to identify all the two-faced people in his government or in his political establishment to prevent them from colluding with the party elders, to prevent them from playing the role of an agent for the party elders. But because the party elders have the influence, right? They have the influence, but they don't hold any positions. And all these people, these two-faced people, are still holding positions. So he's trying to take them down one by one. And that's what we've seen in the past months. Because his concern is that the covert and the overt oppositions join forces together. So now the question is, who are the covert opponents, right? So now let's talk about the second group that poses a big threat to him, right? These people that can potentially play the role of an agent. Who are these people? Well, they are the people close to him. They are the members of the Politburo Standing Committee or people who hold important positions under him. And the general rule of thumb is the closer the official is to Xi Jinping, the greater the threat he poses. It sounds counterintuitive, right? But for communist leaders, that's just the way things are. And there are quite a number of precedents. Let me just get rid of this guy. I think he doesn't look very pleasant on the screen. You know, if you look at these CCP officials, they all look. They don't look like someone you can trust. You know, that's just how their pictures come out to be. Okay, let me talk about why the closer an official is to Xi Jinping, the less likely or the higher, the more chances they may oppose Xi one day. Nikita Khrushchev was Joseph Stalin's most trusted associate and chosen heir, right? However, at the first party congress after Stalin's death, in front of 1,500 delegates and invited visitors, Khrushchev gave a long speech called "The Personality Cult and Its Consequences" in a closed session. He denounced Stalin, his predecessor, and all the crimes he had perpetrated, including execution, torture, and imprisonment of loyal party members. So people were shocked. And then 5 years later, at the next party congress, he repeated his attack on Stalin, and this time in an open session. And others also joined him in denouncing Stalin. So Khrushchev's speeches had a huge impact on Mao Zedong, who feared that one of his most trusted allies and most loyal associates would one day turn against him. And guess what? He was right. It did happen. Mao's chosen successor, Lin Biao, turned against him, and Lin's airplane was shot down after he and his family tried to flee China after some unsuccessful conspiracy against Mao. So after Mao died, and if you look at this pattern, it continued in China. Madame Mao was overthrown by party elders, and Mao's successor, Hua Guofeng, was again overthrown by Deng Xiaoping. So you see, that's how power is passed down in communist regimes. They're passed down precisely um, through some kind of coup d'etat by the very person that's trusted by his predecessor or by his mentor. And even former Romanian communist leader Ceausescu, is that how you pronounce it? Ceausescu? He was tried and executed by his generals and officials. So, who are these people close to Xi Jinping? Well, one political commentator gave a list of people who are most likely to oppose him. And ranking number one, ranking number one is Zheng Qinghong, right? We've already talked about him, the party elder who still has a lot of influence um, right now. But ranking number two is Cai Qi, the the man who has become so powerful after the 20th Party Congress, and who is now the de facto Xi Jinping's right-hand man, the second-ranking man within the CCP. He's called the second most dangerous man or the second man, or the second person who posed, the man who posed the second most threat to Xi Jinping for a number of reasons. First, he's capable of being cruel and ruthless because his personality speaks volume. He was notoriously known for kicking 100,000 poor people out of Beijing overnight, or within a very short period of time in cold winter, leaving many people homeless, only to carry out Xi Jinping's order that Beijing, the capital city, should maintain a good image. And at the time, his speech was, the order. He was the mayor of Beijing, or he was the head of the party secretary of Beijing, and he gave the order. He said, do whatever you can at any cost, like even like 刺刀见红, meaning like even at the cost of bloodshed. I mean, he was just like, do anything. I don't care if people live or die. Just do everything you can to get rid of this 100,000 poor people who tarnishes the image of the capital city. So that's another reason, and the second reason is he has officially kicked out or defeated the second person within the CCP, the premier Li Qiang. Cai Qi officially ranked number 5 in CCP's Politburo Standing Committee, but somehow he has beat out the number 2 guy, Li Qiang, the premier, and became the number 2. The premier, as the head of the government, has been losing in a power struggle with Cai. So why do we say the premier has been losing power? Well, the premier was the only Politburo Standing Committee member who missed the meeting on October 9th with Xi Jinping at the union conference, at the labor union conference, because that conference is always attended by all 7 Politburo Standing Committee members, but Li Qiang, the premier, was the only one missing from that event. And also, when he hosted the National Day banquet on September 28th, supposedly he should be given a keynote speech, but he didn't. He gave that opportunity to Xi Jinping. And rumors about Li Qiang's wife and daughter and a British son-in-law have been all over the internet. And also, when he visited foreign countries, he didn't dare to fly his own plane like Li Keqiang did, but used a commercial chartered plane instead. So, I mean, there are other incidents. So, I'm not going to give you all the details, but in a nutshell, these two men sitting on both sides of Wang Huning, Li Qiang, and Cai Qi have been engaged in an internal factional infighting ever since the 20th Party Congress, which happened last October. So it's been a year the two have been fighting. This is very ironic. After Xi Jinping removed Hu Jintao from the party Congress and got rid of all the reformists in the Politburo, and after building a Politburo standing committee comprised of only his loyalists, he should be all set, right? Well, no. Within the Xi Jinping faction, a war broke out. There's infighting between his loyalists, and Li Qiang and Cai Qi represent two different factions. By the way, infighting is part of the CCP's, is part of the political ecology of the CCP. When they don't have external enemies, or when they don't have external factional wars to fight, they'll fight among themselves. They'll divide and fight among themselves. And so these two men sitting on both sides of Wang Huning have been fighting. Now, they represent different factions within the Xi Jinping gang. I'm just telling you now, you have another factional war. So Li Qiang represents the Zhejiang gang because he was Xi Jinping's secretary or lieutenant when Xi Jinping was the party secretary in Zhejiang province. Whereas Cai Qi worked for Xi Jinping when she was in Fujian, right? So Cai Qi represents the Fujian gang. So between the two, so you have a Fujian gang or faction, and then you have the Zhejiang faction or Zhejiang gang. So Xi Jinping only trusts people who worked for him. And so they either came from Fujian or Zhejiang. So Li Qiang, came from Zhejiang, and Cai Qi came from Fujian. But between these two factions, or between these two gangs, Xi Jinping favors the Fujian faction more. This is because Fujian was where he started his political career. When he was in Fujian, when he was a low-ranking official there, he was often ostracized and marginalized in the beginning. So those who followed him then, in his mind, are more loyal because he was a nobody then, right? And those who followed him in Zhejiang are less loyal because then, by that time, Xi Jinping was more established politically, and it was more obvious that he would rise to a position in the central leadership in Beijing one day. So in his mind, whoever followed him in the early days were more loyal. And so that's why, I think Xi Jinping, likes the I mean, trust both men, Cai Qi and Li Qiang. But when the two fought, uh, when Xi Jinping, picked one side because emotionally or whatever, mentally, he or politically, he trusted the people, the individuals who had been with him longer and who started working for him since Fujian from the very early days. And so that's why Cai Qi is doing well, and poor Li Qiang is not. Um, so now, just to give you another example to show why the Fujian gang is doing well. Another person who belongs to the Fujian gang is He Lifeng, the vice premier who is in charge of economy, is also started in Fujian, and he's given more responsibilities than his predecessor Liu He. Okay. So now, so I talked about Cai Qi, so Zheng Qihong, then Cai Qi. The third person who people say may pose a big threat to Xi Jinping is 造乐记. So let me show you another picture. Um, so let me show you the picture of his Politburo. 赵乐际 is the man on the top, on the right. Um, this guy, who many believe belonged to the Jiang Zemin faction, he has been perceived as being disloyal to Xi Jinping because he is responsible for spoiling the feng shui of the dragon vein for Xi Jinping, the dragon vein of the Qinling Mountains in Shanxi. And whatever damages he had done to the mountains cannot be remedied. Now, Qinling Mountain is in Shanxi province, Xi Jinping's hometown, and Xi Jinping believes that it's where the dragon vein, what do you call that? The dragon lineage, the the lineage, the power lineage. Chinese emperors are believed to be the son of the dragons, right? So the dragon lineage is very important to Xi Jinping, and that brings him good feng shui. And so he has forbidden officials to build mansions on the Qinling Mountains, and there were up to like thousands of private residences, mansions for the wealthy people and for the government officials built on the Qinling Mountains, and that upset Xi Jinping. So he had ordered, them to dismantle those mansions on the Qinling Mountain because they hurt his feng shui. These mansions hurt his feng shui. And guess who was the one heavily involved in building those mansions on the mountain, on the forbidden mountain? No other than Zhao Leji. And so recently, 19 officials who used to work for Zhao uh, were removed within 20 days. And Zhao used to head up the one very important organization for Xi Jinping, the Central Commission of Discipline and Inspection. But during his 5 years as the head of that organization, he didn't do much. So Xi Jinping is utterly unhappy with this guy. So this guy is in trouble, but is highly because of his affiliation with the Jiang Zemin faction and with everything he has done and not done for Xi Jinping, with all the trouble he has, people suspect he ranks number 3 in terms of the individuals most likely, um, posing a danger to Xi Jinping. The other two who seem to be who rank after Zhao are two individuals who seem to be helping Xi Jinping. On the surface, they appear to be loyal, but everything they've done actually brings Xi Jinping into a dead-end street without a way out. And there are the two Wangs, Wang Huning and Wang. I'll show you the other one. Wang Huning is here. I circled him with a red circle. And I've already talked extensively about this guy. He's the mastermind of Xi Jinping's Maoist platform and all the leftist policies. And so he's credited for Xi Jinping's sudden turn to the left after the 19th Party Congress 5 years ago. He served both Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao and was brought to CCP's power center by guess who? Zheng Qinghong, right? The very person who ranks number 1 as the biggest threat to Xi Jinping. So, and he was once called the most dangerous man in the world because he is the one who brought Xi Jinping to the far left. So people say he ranks number 4. And who's the number 5 guy? Who's the other one? Well, I want to show you. Here we go. Do you recognize this man who has his eyes closed? He is the current foreign minister. He was the former foreign minister. He is temporarily playing that role after Qin Gang was removed. This man is very tricky. He does everything that Xi Jinping asked him to do, but people say he is also one of those double-faced people because everything he does, just like Wang Huning, everything he does only causes Xi Jinping more troubles. And people say, uh, he has effectively Wang Yi has effectively helped Xi Jinping create more enemies than he can handle in the national in the international communities. Um, so the more loyal he is, the more harm he does, and the bigger the danger he poses, right? So the reason people pick those four individuals like Cai Qi, Zhao Leji, Wang Huning, and Wang Yi is because nobody really knows what they think. They appear very loyal, right? I mean, like Ding Xuexiang and the two men that I circled in green, like Ding Xuexiang and Li Qiang. I mean, these people they're not in favor right now. They're I think they're struggling because they were thought to be Xi Jinping's close allies, but somehow the other people, the people like in the red circles, or at least Cai Qi, are suppressing the two men in the green circle. So these two men have sort of become like Li Keqiang the second, Wang Yang the second. I mean, I think these two men are more gentle in nature. They're more practical. They're more low key, and they're more practical, and they're not as audacious as the other ones. Um, so they are, yeah. So you see how no matter CCP politics is very interesting. Like you get rid of all your political enemies, you bring in all your loyalists, and then all of a sudden your loyalists will divide, and they will create the same lineup. Like you will have two factions. Right, you get rid of Li Keqiang and Wang Yang and all these reformers, and then one of your or two of your loyalists will play their role, and and then there are the two men circled in green, and then you have all these other um, diehard followers who support you, but they are the most dangerous people. um, they are dangerous because number one, we don't know what they think, and number two, they all fit the profile of the double-faced people. And when Xi Jinping is surrounded by this group of people, he should worry, because let me tell you a story. When Stalin had a stroke, I haven't verified this, but I heard this story like more than once. So I was going to just to verify that, but let's just say it's mostly true. Okay, when Stalin had a stroke and was lying on the floor, members of his Politburo came to his side. They were all people Joseph Stalin had promoted and trusted. Guess what? None of them said, let's call a doctor. Instead, they said, let's have a meeting now to see what we should do next. All of these people there, all of these individuals there shared a mutual, tacit understanding. The meeting went on for a day, leaving Stalin on the floor, and he died. So, you see, under a dictator, the most dangerous people are precisely the ones he thinks he trusts. And I didn't include the PLA in this discussion because they fit in another category. I don't think the chance for the PLA to organize a coup on their own is high. Because they also need political alliance. The role they can play, the PLA can play, is just like an agent, like I said, right? So they also need to partner with a party elder to really to stage a coup to overthrow Xi Jinping. But I think as long as Xi Jinping does not start a war, I think these PLA officers don't want to be bothered, because I mean, they could carry on with their good life, and as long as there's no war, they don't want to be bothered with, because they're not necessarily interested in politics as much as the other guys. Um, but things might be very different once a war breaks out, because the brutality of war can destroy the very fragile loyalty the PLA officers have to Xi Jinping. So when there's no war, I think these people, probably won't go crazy to do something drastic. But if when there's a war, then it might be different. Okay. Wow, I've talked for 50 minutes. That's a long time. Okay, let me see if people have questions for me. All right. Okay. I have not talked about CCP internal factional wars for a long time. So this is a good timely update. So you know what's happening in behind closed doors. All right. Okay. Let me see if people have questions for me. So let me see questions. EFF Xon EFFE Lei suggested for a three-part war plan video that she is not in danger of being replaced, and rocket force plan was left ambiguous. Any comment on this? You mean asking me? Are you asking me or are you asking other people? Yes, I watch my two previous live streams. I think they're utterly important. The rocket force cleansing is uh, is done to gain. Obviously, it's done to gain control and to I mean to solidify his control, but it's not wildly speculated as people have been. I mean, I've been sent emails, and people ask me, is the rocket force organizing a coup d'état against Xi Jinping? I mean, people send me emails, and there are a lot of rumors like that. And if you watch my program, my last program, based on one source of information, it said that's not, Xi Jinping is still in control. His position as the paramount leader is still stable. He's still in control. There's no one, in the PLA is uh, audacious enough to really overthrow him, even though they're unhappy. And I think that's a rational assessment, and I agree with that. Okay, you can watch my program to get more information. Mint creative gifts and ideas. Some experts said that Biden is a communist instead of a capitalist like Trump. Do you agree? Well, I don't think it depends on what your definition of communists. It's all relative. I mean, his political agenda is definitely more on the left compared to Trump. But is he a communist? Probably. I mean, he definitely. I mean, if Xi Jinping is a communist, then there's still a big difference between his ideas than Xi Jinping's ideas. So I don't know if I can call him a communist, but he does have some of the very progressive platforms. Although he's trying to stay away from that, right? He's building the wars now. I think he realized that he's been caught in some of the very left leaning platforms and ideas. I don't know. I don't know what it's. They waver. One of the things with politicians, my father used to tell me, the one person that you cannot trust is politician, because they change. They say anything they want. Isn't that true? I think it's true. Whether politicians in China or here, I mean, they just say anything uh, to to help themselves. Lei, your English is excellent. Oh, thank you. Sometimes I don't feel that way. Um, all right, let me see if people have. Uh, Let me just go through the super chats. I think that's all. Oh, I have one. Oh, I have super chats. Oravan Carlisle, Carlisle, Khalil, Khalili. Thank you, thank you. Let me see. Kamala Vasudeva. Vasudevan. Well, thank you. Thank you for the donation. Let me see. All right. Now let's see if people have questions for me. All right, I'll just randomly pick some questions. Mark Pollard. Oh, that's not addressed to me. If you have questions for me, put my name in the front. So Alex B B Charm B Cam B Cam. In your last live stream, you said it was disinformation that the Rocket Force purge was related to disloyalty. Do you still think this is true? Yes, I still think it is true. I think I even before I did the research for that live stream, I thought that all these rumors and these speculations about the Rocket Force have staged a coup, or they're plotting to assassinate Xi Jinping, and all these crazy things I hear from left to right. I suspect, the intention of that. I really don't think. I believe there's I believe there's serious corruption within the Rocket Force. I believe officers in the Rocket Force do not want to have a war. I believe that some of their children who live in the US might have cooperated with the Americans. I think all these claims are valid, but I don't think the Rocket Force has actively staged in a coup d'etat to overthrow Xi. I do not believe that's the case. I do not believe that they have actually staged an assassination attempt, as some people have claimed. Not at all. And as far as the claim that Xi Jinping's power is still stable, and I think it's correct, because people who live in communist country, as much they don't like everything they're seeing, they live in fear. You know, they don't. I mean, who wants to risk everything they have and everything their children have, their grandchildren have, um, to challenge the paramount leader, right? Especially among the princelings, the political establishments, and also the PLA officers. They live a good life. I mean, Xi Jinping has rewarded them financially so well. He has given them raises. I mean, he's given them so much money. Um, why do they want to oppose all of that? I mean, their decision is, well, I'm just going to follow the leader. I do whatever my decision is not to make any mistake. Just follow the leader. They don't want to take that risk. Only the people who have lost everything, who don't have anything left, people at the bottom, wants to take the risk, wants to take the gamble to do something, but then they are not in any position to do anything, to pose any threat. And that's the reality in China. So it's very, very hard for the PLA officers to have the courage, to do something. So I think that's why when I saw the what's his name, Zhao Lanjian, the journalist who I featured in my last live stream, he corrected himself on September 25th, and I think it was sound. It was a good judgment on his part, and I respect his professionalism for doing that, because that is a good judgment. All right, let's see. From Gaorong Salka Lei, can she actually be ambushed without creating to the appropriate public opinion? Can the constant punishments of nature calamities, as the divine rejection of the emperor, in this case Xi, can she actually be ambushed without creating to the appropriate public opinion? I think it has to be like, Chinese believe when when we have a dynastic changes, the three conditions. It's called celestial timing, terrestrial condition, and human harmony. Basically, I mean, it means the timing has to be right, like the astrological, like the timing, like all the stars have aligned. The timing has to be right. And then terrestrial territorial condition, or terrestrial condition, meaning on the land it has to be circumstance, like circumstantial situations has to be right. Like maybe there's a natural disaster, or there's a protest, something has happened in China that would trigger something. And then human harmony, meaning people are organized, people have the right people have been pushed to the forefront to do this. So you have to have all three conditions meeting at the same time for a dynastic changes to take place. So yeah, I think maybe the timing hasn't come yet. All right, from Valina 5, why are Xi Jinping economic policies so chaotic and escalating? Well, why is it so chaotic? Because China's past 3 decades of so-called economic reforms or economic miracle is a total disaster. And the regime has been hiding it. The only reason its GDP has been able to grow is because foreign investments. All the money, particularly the United States and the Wall Street, all the money we've sent to China have allowed the CCP to grow and obtained these technologies. But look at what it has been doing with the money and technology that um, it has obtained. You know, it, it's dangerous. So China's without political reform, the so-called economic reform in China does not work and will fail. It only causes corruption. It only empowers. It only provides this authoritarian regime with all the financial resources to build up its military, to buy influences in the world, to infiltrate our society. Um, and it's highly dangerous. Without political reform, it's dangerous. I hope the West has already seen that. So that's why its economy. I mean, the part of the success, part of the economic success, has been built on this real estate model, and this real estate bubble. People have been saying that it's going to bust for the past maybe at least 5 years, and it is happening now. And when that happens, it's going to trigger a banking crisis. And when Chinese banks uh, collapse, it will affect our financial world, because China has so much investments in the West. And we also have a lot of investments in China. The two financial worlds are so intertwined. And actually, this is part of China's CCP strategy. Like it wants to create this uh, mutual world, so that you come to my, like 你中有我，我中有你. So we're intermingled. So then, once we're bundled together, then you are afraid to let me go down, because when I go down, when I collapse, you're going to collapse with me. So this is CCP's precise strategy. That's why, without seriously cutting the ties, without seriously decoupling, Western politicians want to do de-risking. It's impossible. How can you de-risk when you're bundled together? Biden calls China's economy a ticking time bomb. The only way you can protect yourself is to decouple, cut the ties before it goes off. When you don't cut the ties, when the bomb goes off, you are gonna go off with them. So I don't understand why they don't cut the ties, why they don't decouple, and only talk about de-risking. How do you de-risking? You want to turn off, you want to shut off the time bomb, but it's impossible. You cannot. You cannot. That bomb is too big. It cannot be turned off. People have been politicians from both sides of the Pacific. Okay, the Biden administration, and then they have both wanted to postpone the detonation of this bomb. They just want to push it to the future. But the longer they postpone this, the more dangerous it is when the bomb does detonate. It's going to hurt the future economy of our country. So I would say why you can decouple, cut the ties, so you minimize the damage when the bomb does go off. Everybody knows it will go off. Um, so I just think the so-called de-risking policy designed by the G7 nations at the G7 summit is wishful thinking. Um, they do this to help themselves politically because it's, you know, um, and the CCP knows this. CCP knows all the weaknesses of the advanced of because I mean why I say it's a rogue regime because they use just like what we've seen in the Hamas Israeli conflict, they use innocent human being as hostage, right? They use innocent people as human shield. So they say, well, you are afraid because you're a democratic countries, you are afraid to let your economy collapse because you don't want your voters to vote you out of office because when the economy falls, they're going to vote you out of office. But I'm not afraid. I can afford to have my people live in poverty. So therefore, you know, so you're forever at the mercy of their ideas. I think the world needs to come up with a better solution when we deal with the rogue regimes like that. Anyways, Frank CE. I don't share the view that princelings in USA are cooperating with the US authorities. Most of them just want to have fun. What do you mean princelings in USA? I didn't say princelings in the USA. You're saying princelings in USA's? What do you mean? Hunter Biden? I did not even talk about princelings in the USA today. I talked about princelings in China, the princelings, CCP princelings. So I'm not quite sure what you're disagreeing. Doug Alexander Lay, could all this confusion in Xi's control of PLA be nothing more than a deception to make adversaries like the USA think China is weak when they're not? Could all this confusion? Yes, that's precisely the point made in my last live stream on Thursday. It's a very important discussion on Thursday. I suggest you should go watch it if you haven't. Let's see. Westchester Observer Group. Your videos give the impression she's trying to reform his regime. Do you have a probability rating for his success, failure in this effort? Will he be consumed by his reforms? Well, she is trying to. When I say reform, I mean he's trying to save the regime. He thinks he has the historical responsibility of saving this communist regime from falling apart. And that's perhaps what you mean by reform. What do I think the probability for his success? Zero. It's gonna fail. There's no way he could save the regime. Will he be consumed by his reforms? He will be consumed by the very effort of trying to reform or trying to save the regime. Okay. All right. Frank CE. Okay, so I thought you were referring to the princelings in the USA. Okay, thank you for clarifying. No, I'm talking about the princelings in the CCP. All right, princelings means 太子党, Yang Rong. Yes, princeling means 太子党. So there's the second generation, the red princelings, 红二代 or 红二代, right? The red princelings. All right, that's all for today. I thank you for joining me. This is a timely update for you on what's happening within the political struggles because we have not talked about the CCP's political struggles, internal factional wars since the 20th Party Congress. Before this point, everything we talked about was, Xi versus the Jiang faction, but now there's another group. So I hope this is helpful. But I thank you for joining me and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you next week or this week, later this week. All right. Bye.